Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. I hope all my dear UGC NET aspirants, criminology students, researchers, and future professors are doing well and moving one step closer to their dreams. Today, we are going to discuss one of the most fascinating and socially relevant contemporary perspectives in criminology, known as Green Criminology. This perspective takes criminology beyond traditional crimes such as murder, theft, robbery, or assault and asks a very important question: what about crimes against nature? When forests are destroyed, rivers are polluted, wildlife is hunted, and industries release toxic chemicals into the environment, should these acts also be considered crimes? If thousands of people suffer because of environmental destruction, who should be held responsible? These questions gave birth to Green Criminology. As future criminologists and UGC NET aspirants, it is important to understand that crime is not only committed against human beings, sometimes the greatest victims are forests, animals, rivers, oceans, and future generations who will inherit a damaged planet. So now let us understand green criminology in a simple and interesting way. Green criminology emerged during the late 20th century as scholars began realizing that traditional criminology was paying very little attention to environmental destruction. The term green criminology was popularized by criminologist Michael J. Lynch in early 1990s. Later scholars such as Rob White, Nigel South, and Paul Strutsky expanded the field significantly. These scholars argue that traditional criminology focuses mainly on violations of criminal law. However, many environmentally harmful activities may be perfectly legal but still cause immense damage to people, animals, and ecosystems. For example, a corporation may legally dump certain chemicals into a river within government limits, but those chemicals may still harm aquatic life and local communities. Green criminologists therefore believe that legality and harm are not always the same thing. Green criminology is the study of environmental harm, ecological destruction, crimes against wildlife, pollution, and activities that damage ecosystems. It examines not only acts that violate environmental laws, but also actions that cause significant environmental harm, even when they are technically legal. In simple words, green criminology asks us to think beyond the question, is it illegal, and instead ask, does it cause harm? This shift from legal definitions to harm based definitions is one of the most important contributions of green criminology. The first major idea is that environmental harm should be treated as seriously as conventional crime. Imagine a factory releasing toxic waste into a river. Thousands of people may suffer from contaminated water. Fish populations may disappear. Agricultural land may become infertile. The harm caused may affect more people than a single robbery or assault, yet society often pays less attention to environmental damage. Green criminologists challenge this imbalance. The second major idea is that corporations and powerful organizations are often responsible for large scale environmental harm. Unlike street crimes, environmental crimes frequently involve large industries, multinational corporations, illegal mining groups, and powerful economic actors. These perspectives therefore focuses heavily on corporate crime and state corporate crime. The third major idea is environmental justice. Green criminologists argue that environmental harm does not affect everyone equally. Poor communities, tribal populations, fishermen, farmers, and marginalized groups often suffer the most from pollution and environmental degradation. Thus, environmental issues are also issues of social justice. The fourth major idea is species justice and ecological justice. Traditional criminology focuses mainly on human victims. Green criminology expands the concept of victimization to include animals, forests, rivers, and ecosystem. A tiger killed by poachers, a forest destroyed by illegal logging, or a river contaminated by industrial waste can also be viewed as victims. Let us understand this perspective through everyday examples. Suppose a company cuts down thousands of trees to build a project without proper environmental safeguard. The result is soil erosion, floods, loss of wildlife habitat, and climate impacts. Traditional criminology may not always view this as crime. Green criminology asks us to examine the broader ecological damage. Similarly, when illegal sand mining destroys river ecosystems, when poachers hunt endangered species, or when industries pollute groundwater, green criminology considers these serious forms of environmental victimization. No discussion of environmental harm in India can complete without discussing the Bhopal gas disaster. In December 1984, toxic methyl isocyanate gas leaked from the pesticide plant operated by Union Carbide Corporation in Bhopal. Thousands of people died immediately while many more suffered lifelong illnesses, respiratory diseases, disabilities, and genetic problems. Green criminologists consider this disaster as example of corporate negligence and environmental victimization on a massive scale. The, tra- the tragedy demonstrates how industrial activities can create victims not only in present but across generations. From a green criminology perspective, the Bhopal gas disaster represents one of the most significant examples of environmental crime and corporate crime in modern history. Illegal sand mining has become a major environmental issue across several Indian states. Rivers are excessively excavated to meet construction demands. As a result, river ecosystems are damaged, groundwater levels decline, river banks collapse, and biodiversity suffer. In states such as Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, and Maharashtra, illegal sand mining networks have often been linked with corruption and organized criminal activities. Green criminologists view this not simply as a violation of mining regulation but as a crime against ecosystems and local communities. The proposed bauxite mining project in the Nyamgiri hills of Odisha became one of India's most discussed environmental conflicts. The indigenous Dongria Kon community argued that mining activities would destroy forests, water sources, and their cultural identity. Green criminology highlights how environmental destruction often affects vulnerable populations the most. The case demonstrates the close relationship between environmental justice and human rights. India is home to magnificent wildlife including tigers, elephants, rhinos, and leopards. However, illegal wildlife trade remains a serious challenge. Poachers kill animals for skins, horns, bones, and other body parts that are sold in international black markets. From a green criminology perspective, these edibles are victims of crime. The theory argues that wildlife should not be valued only for economic benefits but also for its intrinsic right to exist. This approach significantly broadens the traditional understanding of victimology. The famous Belandur Lake has repeatedly attracted attention because of toxic foam and fire incidents caused by pollution. Industrial waste, sewage discharge, and urban contamination have severely affected the lake ecosystem. Green criminologists would view this as an example of environmental harm resulting from inadequate regulation and governance. The damage extends beyond the lake itself and affects surrounding communities, wildlife, and public health. One of the most important modern applications of green criminology is the study of climate change. Climate change causes floods, droughts, heat waves, crop failures, displacement, and environmental refugees. Green criminologists argue that corporations and industries contributing heavily to greenhouse gas emission should be held accountable for environmental harms. This area has become increasingly important as crime related disasters continue to affect populations around the world. Dear students, if you are preparing for UGC NET, remember this point carefully. The 21st century is witnessing environmental challenges on an unprecedented scale. Deforestation, biodiversity loss, pollution, illegal wildlife trade, climate change, and environmental disaster are becoming central global concerns. Traditional criminology alone cannot adequately explain these issues. Green criminology provides a broader framework for understanding environmental harm and ecological victimization. This is one reason why contemporary criminological perspectives are becoming increasingly important in competitive examinations and academic research. So, whenever you study criminology, do not limit yourself to conventional crimes. Train yourself to think critically about environmental harm as well. Despite its importance, green criminology has faced several criticisms. One criticism is that it often becomes difficult to define what constitutes environmental harm. Different groups may disagree on whether a particular activity is harmful or beneficial. For example, a mining project may create employment opportunities while simultaneously damaging ecosystem. Determining the balance between economic development and environmental protection can be challenging. Another criticism is that green criminology sometimes focuses heavily on moral and political arguments rather than providing clear legal definitions. Critics argue that without clear legal boundaries, almost any environmental activity could potentially be labeled harmful. Some scholars also suggest that green criminology places excessive emphasis on corporations and governments while giving less attention to individual responsibility. Despite these criticisms, the perspective continues to grow because environmental issues are becoming increasingly urgent worldwide. As we conclude today's discussion, remember that green criminology transforms the way criminologists think about crime and victimization. It teaches us that victims are not limited to human beings, animals, forests, rivers, oceans, ecosystem, and future generation can also suffer from harmful actions. The perspective encourages us to examine environmental destruction, corporate negligence, illegal wildlife trade, pollution, climate change, and ecological injustice through a criminological lens. Most importantly, green criminology reminds us that protecting nature is not merely an environmental responsibility, it is also a matter of justice. To all my UGC NET aspirants watching this video, remember that every theory in criminology expands our understanding of society. Green criminology is especially important because it connects crime, law, human rights, environmental protection, and social justice into one powerful framework. Keep studying consistently. Every chapter you complete today brings you one step closer to becoming a lecturer, professor, researcher, or criminologist tomorrow. Never underestimate the power of daily preparation. Your dedication today will become your success story tomorrow. Thank you for watching. And if you found this lecture helpful, do share it with your friends and fellow UGC NET aspirants and subscribe and hit a like. Keep learning, keep growing, and I will see you in the next criminology lecture.